I'm gonna hold your hand when I say this. That great lock-in locked you in. Why is it so hard to rebrand? Why is it so hard to stay focused? Why is it so hard to lock in? This whole video is about the importance of personalizing your experience to fit you and your goals. There's a similarity between most great lock-in, the fitness, the health, the sleep, the overall well-being and self-care, which of course are very important. But I think it's important to emphasize how individual these goals are. I don't think these videos will ever be more than motivation if you do not know how to contextualize. Do not study a person's great lock-in more than you are studying yourself. A lot of people claiming the great lock-in have been locking in for quite a long time, probably longer than the said winter arc that people were saying. I can't measure this for certain, of course, but it's not rocket science that habits are not built in a day, and also barely in a month either. Know yourself before you rush to goal set. Calculate your weak points. For example, I know that when I'm emotionally down like I was last week, the hardest thing, like the most important thing to do on my to-do list is the thing that I avoid the most. It's like completely checked out my mind, like I avoid it. For me on that Thursday before, it was filling in my tax return. I've been putting this off for months and I finally got to the time where I had ample time to do it, but my emotions wanted to get the better of me. For me, when I'm like this, I go into like a rebellious type of mode, like a whole like nothing matters anyways, who cares, I'm not gonna be successful anyways. So I acknowledge, like, Angela, you feel rubbish, and the hardest thing on your mind feels like a mountain right now, but please, just do it now. I automatically found my body navigating towards my laptop and opening up the tab that had the HMRC open. And I found the return. I didn't really give my body the chance to say no. This for me was a successful moment, but I acknowledged that it was also kind of low stakes. Something that you should acknowledge too is that there are levels to this. For example, proximity helped because the laptop was right beside me. But say for example, if I was feeling rubbish and I was like, ooh, I really want to go to the gym, like in that very moment, I know I would be staying in that bed, baby. That bed would see me and that gym would not. Why? Because that's a higher tier of expectation. Proximity is no longer a luxury. But then I can't now be mad at myself because I've not, yet reached that level of self-motivation. Am I making sense, guys? We have to implement those small practices that, chip out our weak points and make us stronger every day. Another thing you need to ask yourself is documentation necessary? What works for everyone may not work for you. For some, documentation is like an accountability partner. They would hate the shame of not showing up every day, so that alone would keep them going. But for others, it doesn't work like that. In fact, they would get their heads so muddled that they would focus more on documenting than the actual thing they want to produce, the goal that they want to achieve. So you need to know yourself. Have you ever stopped to think that maybe those people that you see so effortlessly showing online, they're great looking, have perfectly and personally executed a level of specificity around their goals that showing up online is kind of just like nothing for them because they know exactly what they want in their goals. If you're not specific, then you can't measure. If you don't measure, then you don't know whether you achieved it or not, so you don't know whether you are able to celebrate yourself or tell yourself to try again. In the last quarter of 2025, my goal was to eat healthier, more specifically cutting down on sugars and certain carbs and replacing it with something supplementary that's actually better for me. Previous dieting has never worked for me because I would jump and try and remove all sugars and everything that was supposedly bad for me without giving a supplement, which is silly. Plus, I'd be thinking short term instead of long. Now, I did have a certain timestamp, Cyprus, going to Cyprus for my birthday, but I also wanted to continue going, hence why I kept everything slow, steady and intentional. The hardest part wasn't the foods. The hardest part was coming home late from work and having to cook, having to meal prep, rejecting certain foods when I was outdoors, and the occasional going to the gym. The specific thing that worked for me, like when I had to fill my tax return, was not giving my mind enough space to think of 12 different reasons as to why I should have meal prep. I was successful in my healthier eating, not by somebody else's standards, but by my own. And a large lesson that I learned that you could probably apply beyond food is replacement over removal. Because there will always be that gap that you're likely to revert back to and fill with the wrong thing if you do not fill it with the right thing. Another reason why the great lock-in may not have worked for some of us is because we didn't decide whether something was for execution or up for suggestion. Stop getting mad at yourself for something that you didn't even devise a plan for. You weren't gonna do it anyways. Those who have unorganized notes with no timestamps and no deadlines are putting things up for suggestion. Know why behind what you're doing. For those who want to execute, they have plans, they have non-negotiable goals, they have deadlines, they understand why they're doing what they're doing. Potentially even people keeping them accountable. Sidebar, I actually think I find accountability quite difficult because relying on people to, I guess, keep up with your life or one part of your life when, they can barely keep up with their own life because everyone's got so much to do. But what I call light accountability might actually work. It's like light accountability / light oversharing. What I mean by that is randomly dropping in conversation with a friend, like, oh, I kind of like just decided to like cut down on sugar or cut out sugar. You can't cut out sugar. Cut down on sugar. Or you could be like, oh, I've just signed up for the gym again, by the way. Psychologically, you feel accountable because you have said it out loud to somebody that matters to you. Although they're not formally bringing you up on it, they do have license to because you told them, and plus it's pretty much a good conversation starter. Like next time they see you, it's like, oh, hey, how's that going? Plus, accountability is great because it actually forces you to be specific, because it's harder to explain what you don't know how to define. So what have we said so far that you need to go away and think about? Have you specified and personalized your goal before you have documented it? What are your weak points that stop productivity and execution? What are you replacing with what you've removed? And what are you executing and what are you suggesting? Now we can translate this to Q1, because for many, January is for planning, whereas the great lock-in is more for like execution. So don't work on the goal, work on the route. I think the line between ideation and execution is decision making. Your life doesn't fall apart because you don't have goals. It falls apart because in high pressure moments, you don't know which decision to make. You don't know which decision aligns with what you want. If your ideation is simple and specific, it makes your decision making easier to do. Most of us assume that when the moment comes, decision making will be easy. We'll have the mental capacity to weigh up options and make the right choice. But in reality, decisions usually show up when you're tired, short on time, under pressure, and emotional. So you're not thinking deeply, you're just basically defaulting to what you already know. So you're not using so much mental capacity. Hence why your ideation should be simple and specific. Because if you have that default, then you have something to just refer back to. In those high intensity moments, decisions can feel so abstract and unrelated. Like, why is this happening right now? But if you have a simplified goal that you have ideated, you can connect the dots. You look a bit confused, I understand. So I'm going to give you an example. Disclaimer, an example. Let's say this year you decided that you wanted to launch a business. You wanted to hit a specific revenue number and you wanted to work with a certain type of client. Maybe you've suddenly been put in a difficult position at work. Either you stay in your job with a pay cut or you completely leave. In that moment, it feels chaotic. You're choosing between stability and risk, and that is obviously scary. But if your goal has been specific, then you can refer back to what you already know. What that could be is that you're generating enough income on the side, you're living at home, you've already tested your demand, you've been slowly putting in the logistical pieces on your business or whatever. Even if all you do that night that, you've been told this, oh my gosh, I've got to choose between having a job or not having it. Even if all you do that night is map out what it looks like to continue your side income that has been making you money, and then for you to eventually go and commit to said business. In that way, you're not necessarily guessing like, oh, this or that. It's more so you're connecting the dots with actual evidence that you have found through your life in both scenarios. Just a disclaimer again, this is not financial business advice. This is just an example so that you can kind of gauge what I'm talking about. There comes a time in your life where financial security is more important, but there also comes a time in life where a window of opportunity is even more important. Which applies to you depends on your circumstances and on the timing. But the point is you'll know which decision to make faster and with more confidence if you've already invested in understanding your goals, the potential outcome of those goals. That's what working on the route actually means. So what did I say? You need to practice being specific and you need to practice decision making. Every day is an opportune time. Make a decision and then make the decision right. That's something that I learned from a video that Grace Beverly did on her podcast. So even in the smallest decisions, when you find yourself in a tough pit where maybe both A and B are good or both A and B are bad, practice looking one, don't look back, and then mold your decision to work for you. Something that Bozoma said as well on a podcast with Emma Greed, there's obviously a nuance between whether you think there's ever a wrong decision or not, but essentially whatever decision has been made, you will still have to do the work to make it right for you, whether it takes 2 months or 2 years. And then very, very key, reflect on if it worked, and then if it did, use that method again and again and again, because if it keeps working out for you, it's pretty good, mate. I've covered only a handful of things, but we're both learning, as we go. But I'll be back with something else for you. But for now, chew on what I've given you, because I believe that you have been fed enough.